The alarm siren rises like a long wave, deep rather than shrill, and trembles through the metal. You're already on deck, hands on the cold rail, on the horizon, northeast of Okinawa, April 1945. The sky has the milky pallor of a sea morning. You don't see the aeroplane yet. Only a drone, a speck that looks like a flaw in the glass of the air. The wind brings the briny smell, a hint of diesel, and the faint trace of coffee drifting up from the galley. Someone behind you murmurs under their breath, "Kamikaze." The word melts into the sea's whisper, a drop dissolving in water. You bend, tighten the chin strap of your helmet. The ship's loudspeaker, muffled, announces, "General Quarters, Condition 1." You ready yourself to move, and yet something in you remains calm. You listen to the measured beat of boots on the deck, the distant clang of a hatch slamming shut. You lift your gaze. The speck grows, and then the scene fogs, as if the sea had breathed out a cloud of vapor, and time draws back with the soft sound of a retreating surf. You find yourself months and years earlier, when everything is still outline and promise. You're at Naval Station, Great Lakes, Illinois. The spring of 1942 smells like fresh laundry on a line and wet wood. Dawn climbs over the barracks and slides across the windows. The bugle slices the quiet with a short call. You rise, pull on dark blue trousers, the white cap cupping your head like a shell. "Keep it tight," the instructor whispers, voice low but firm. You walk in file, soles crunching on the gravel. The day has a simple geometry training, theory, more training. Your hands learn the ropes by feel, the square knot, the clove hitch. The smell of hemp and tar sticks to your skin with the same stubbornness as chalk dust on your fingers. Name? Apprentice Seaman, sir. Good. Remember, slow and careful. The sea doesn't sit like haste. You breathe. Let the cold air rinse your thoughts. In the mess hall at mealtime, the hum of voices is a muffled beehive. Someone whispers Pearl Harbor, no need to raise a voice. The echo of December 7th, 1941, still moves between the tables like an invisible wind. You listen, chew slowly, and focus on the rhythm of your spoon against the bowl, a small metronome keeping time for a new life. After weeks, the orders arrive on thin paper, as dry as a pencil line, assignment to the Pacific Fleet. No ship's name yet, just a heading. You find yourself on a train headed west. The stations slide by, Omaha, Ogden, Sacramento, like quiet flashes in the dark. You sleep with your cheek against the warm window, a slow wave of drowsiness rising and receding. When the train breaks, you hear the groan of the shoes, a sound like skin being stretched. At Mare Island, the waves breathe like sleeping giants. Metal sings when you rap it with your knuckles. The deck hums faintly under your feet. Your floating home will be a newer escort destroyer. Sleek lines, bright gun breeches, a profile cut for fast water. No names here, only the precise rhythm of what is real. Fresh paint smells of solvent and promises. Brass handles shine from careful polishing. You hear the boatswain's pipe, a short trill that commands and reassures. They assign you a rack, a small steel locker for the little you own, letters, a cigarette case, a photograph. "Where you from?" a shipmate asks, speaking softly, as if afraid to disturb the order of things. "East Coast. Time sips different here," he murmurs. "Out here the sea decides the day. You learn deck watches, 4 hours on, 4 off. At night, the deck goes dark. Lights stay masked. The world slipping into a single shade. You lean on the rail and discover the ocean's full silence. No screeching, no city, only the broad breathing of the Pacific. There are so many stars you almost think you hear a thin sound, as if the sky had a weave you could test with your fingers. Someone beside you whispers, "Their Southern Cross." You search, follow his pointing finger, and find that slanted pattern. A new calm settles on you, like a blanket on your shoulders. The ship clears San Francisco past the Golden Gate, and the foredeck glides out onto a docile sea. The first days underway are a slow school. You practice with the rangefinder, learn to listen to the HF radio through headphones that smell of rubber and solder. You write home simple words clipped by sensors who stamp in blue and strike through lines in black. "We're well, the coffee's stronger here. I sleep little but soundly." You fold the letter as carefully as you might set a wing back on a bird. You reach Pearl Harbor. The air is sweet with vegetation and diesel. In the roadstead, hulls carry scars, The harbor speaks in a low voice of a fresh wound. You walk the quay with slow steps. You see twisted sheets of steel pried up, sunlight flashing on water where, now and then, an iridescent slick of fuel drifts. Keep moving, a petty officer says, but his voice is low, respectful. You pause a moment before a makeshift sign bearing a date, 7/12/41. No other words are needed. Your ship joins a task force, steering southwest. The sea changes color, palette after palette of blue, until the heat grows thick as honey. Aboard, the rhythm settles. Réveillé, inspection, fire drill, AA drill, maintenance. Your hands grow used to different smells. Oil, grease, anti-fouling paint, laundry soap. In the afternoon, as the superstructure throws longer shade, you carve, with care, a small harbor of silences, quiet exchanges, a brief laugh, the sharp tick of metal expanding in the sun. Ever seen an air attack? An older hand asks, voice low so as not to rattle the gulls sliding beyond the wake. No. Twilight is worst, he murmurs. Light plays tricks. You learn the tactile meaning of new phrases. Zigzag pattern to confuse submarines. Darken ship for total blackout. Secure from GQ when your heartbeat widens its stride again. They post you as sky lookout for several watches. You learn not so much to see as to listen with your whole skin, to search for movements you don't yet know by name. The SG radar hums, an electronic voice the CIC translates into softened coordinates. You make port at Noumea and Espiritu Santo, warm harbors, timber plate crates that smell of tarred paper. The world is a simple chain, load, sail, escort. In anchorage, sailors keep a spontaneous modesty, laughs are low, footsteps slow. Some write postcards, others sleep in the shade, backs against a drum. You listen to insects you don't recognize, and store sounds like provisions. In the evening, when a faint big band trickles from the loudspeakers, distant, almost faded, you linger by lifeboat Noma 2. The davit cable creaks softly, the sea keeps time, you speak little. 2 sentences, 3. Is it true what they say about Midway? Someone asks without expecting an answer. You know the news already tastes of archives. June 1942, Japanese carriers burning, a turn the officers mention with restraint. You nod gently, the way one nods to a prayer. Routine sets in small rites, a mug of coffee warming your palms, a safety razor gliding slowly, a stitch renewed at a pocket's corner, the deck washed at first light, fresh water spilling away in thin threads, and the sun breaking it into shards. Boots strapped beside the rack, ready, because the alarm can come while you sleep. Stifled laughs, so as not to wake the man coming off watch. The word scuttlebutt for corridor rumors. Convoys toward Guadalcanal, they say. The sea there forgives neither haste nor the illusion that you always know where to look. One night, the Combat Information Center calls an exercise. You move silently down a narrow passageway, helmet brushing the bulkhead, hands memorizing the cold rails. Battle station, says the watch voice, but it sounds like an invitation to breathe deeper. You take your place, snug the strap. Time slows. You hear the tick of a stopwatch, the whisper of a sound-powered phone. Bearing 090, range 8 miles. Someone intones. Everything is technique, order, small decisions like stitches on a vast canvas, then secure from GQ, and the ship resumes being its slow, quiet animal. Every week, mail call. The petty officer reads names, syllables in a chain that manage to become a caress. One letter speaks of a good harvest, another of a winter that lingers in town. You answer softly, round handwriting. You write that the sea smells different each day, that clouds here look like gentle hills. You don't write about movements. You don't write about convoys. Sensors and prudence are a seawall you respect. Your body learns patience. Salt crusts on your eyebrows. Your hands never come fully clean. You learn to repair before replacing a switch, a cable, a gasket. Down below, the machinist shows you how to listen to a pump. If it's singing, it's vibrating too much. Machines talk, but very softly. You nod. You touch with your palm and feel the small vibration, a metal lullaby. The officers step a little faster, but they too lower their voices at night. On the bridge, the signal flags hang at rest, reminding you not everything is radio and radar. There's still a cloth alphabet that moves with the wind. You make friends with the compass and the plotting board. You draw lines with a soft pencil and discover that lines at sea are gentle hypotheses. They shift, adjust, get accepted. Southward tomorrow, the OD says quietly. Aye, sir. Warmer water. Drink up. Take your salt tablets. Easy, steady. Calm as work. Your body loosens. Your mind records. At night, when everything is dark and ship is complete, you listen to waves beat the hull like fabric. Someone mutters a name, a number, in their sleep. You turn your face toward the rack's thin curtain. Beyond it, the passage breathes. You think on what you know. The coral sea halted one push. Midway reversed another. You place it without excitement. The war is a calendar of sun and salt, of repairs and sailings. You take your place in it with small, slow, deliberate steps. Now and then you get liberty ashore. In Noumea the heat is sweet as ripe fruit. The bars have ceiling fans like big white flowers. You sip a soda more slowly than you thought possible. Don't rush, your shipmate says, smiling softly. We've got time. You talk about simple things. The taste of bread just out of the oven. The smell of rain on the docks. No one raises a voice. A gramophone plays far off. A muted trumpet. You discover a kind of weariness that feels like rest. You return aboard on easy feet, the sheet line just nibbling at your finger and thumb, the boatswain pipes, 2 short notes. Cast off, the ship eases away from the pier like a trained animal, without a jerk. You watch the wake widen, fray, then gather again. The Pacific has more patience than you. It teaches you not to want everything at once. You learn to accept that the important thing is to be there, attentive and present when the moment comes. Word runs quietly that the routes will change soon. Solomon's, Guadalcanal, no one makes speeches. A thin layer of silence settles on the talk, like salt dust. Now the drills have small adjustments, tighter timing, shorter movements, eyes trained on that edge of sky where light yields quickly to dark. At sunset, orders come in a careful tone. Sky lookouts, eyes open, surface watches, stay sharp. You nod, calm is not stillness. It's a choice repeated in small ways. One evening the gunner's mate shows you how to stroke the breech with a cloth. As if it were porcelain, there's no hurry, only care. This is the rhythm that saves you, he whispers. And you understand here, war is not a constant roar, it's a tension that breathes. It's a body aligning itself to a metronome that sometimes falls silent, and in its quiet asks you to be there. You find yourself on deck again, as in that first scene your memory offered. The wind has changed smell, it carries algae and ozone. You watch the horizon, perhaps the days are shorter, or perhaps you simply see their folds more clearly. A shipmate steps close. You sleeping? He asks softly. Later. Then take my coffee, he says, placing a warm mug in your hand. It's strong, but kind. You nod, smile without showing teeth. You sip, you feel the heat sink down, you lean against the plating, and listen to the sea trace a steady caress along the hull. From time to time you think of that opening scene. The siren, the speck far out in the sky. You don't chase it away. You let it sit, like a shell on the bedside table. You know it will return. For now you stay in the before, in the everyday that has taught you to breathe more broadly. The deck trembles just a little. The ship goes on. The Pacific is a page that turns slowly, without tearing. You follow the line with your finger, patient, and you learn that waiting can be a form of quiet. At midnight watch change, the messenger passes in a low voice. Watch relieved. You nod, head below into a passage, where the air is warmer, and smells of cleanser and iron. Your rack receives you like a pocket. You draw the curtain, set your cap at your feet, align your shoes, you close your eyes. In the dark, the sea does not disappear. It becomes sound, a soft ribbon that wraps your wrists. Thoughts drift slowly, like rafts, and come to rest in a small, sheltered bay. You know that tomorrow, the sun will pull its golden thread across the deck again, and you'll be there, present, breathing with the ship. Because before the crash there is always a long prepared silence, and within that silence, you learn how to dwell. A column of water rises astern, round as a bell of liquid glass. It isn't a crash, it's a padded thump that trembles through your breastbone like a drum under a blanket. The sea folds back in on itself with a heavy sigh and leaves a brief white lace on the surface. Someone behind you says, almost politely, "Wide." The sonar keeps tapping in the dark. Ping, ping, ping. You rest one ear cup against your head, the cable pressing a smooth arc against your cheek. The sonar man's voice is a thin, steady line. Faint contact. Probable. I-boat, dead ahead. 2 miles. The chief touches your elbow. A small correction. Drop your shoulders. You nod. The air smells of oil, paint, cold salt. It's still night when the boatswain's pipe gives 2 soft notes. The ship keeps its zigzag, lights masked, darkened ship complete. That insect-like presence in your head appears, and fades with every ping. Then, slowly, the tapping falls behind, and the sea stretches out again, big and indifferent. Secure from attack, the speaker says, in a voice not much louder than breathing. It's your first long hunt. No triumph follows, only a list to clear, reset, inspect, check gaskets. You fold a strap back into a neat coil, put away the swab, drink coffee that tastes faintly of tin and rest. Around you, the ocean doesn't change its face. Months earlier the track pulled you south into the Solomons. On the bridge, folded charts carry the clean smell of starch and soft pencil. The names run in a quiet chain: Espiritu Santo, Tulagi, Guadalcanal, New Georgia. Your escort destroyer stands where it belongs, at the margin. Escort in, escort out. Eyes up for the sky, ear down for the water. Each time you let go the anchor, the bow gives a small courteous nod, and you go forward to watch the chain run, iron on iron, a round, patient sound. They call it the Tokyo Express. A shipmate tells you, as if sharing a bedtime story. They run at night, offload, and go. And us. We stay. That sips the job. Solomon's nights are a different kind of black, heavier, and humid. From shore the cicadas lay a woven mat of sound, and the smell of green things reaches you in gentle, uneven breaths, touched sometimes by wood smoke. When the air raid alarm comes, it often comes at the edge of light. No longer day, not yet night, and shapes turn into swallows without a season. You climb to your station, your hands open and close on movements they now know. The 3/50 say, lift toward the grey. The optical sights search for a line that betrays a dive. Bogey 270, Angels Low, 10 miles. The CIC murmurs. The sound-powered phones pass words in a chain. Ready, fire. The first time you truly see an airplane coming in. It isn't as fast as you feared. It's a long move, like an elastic band being drawn tight. Tracers chalk the air. A G4M Betty turns too wide. A quiet orange flower opens and closes again. No one cheers. You stand still for half a breath. Then you all go back to looking at the sky. At Tulagi, you still hear talk of Savo Island told as a caution. The night took ships there. Officers keep the story low without weight on the words. You listen and store it. In the end, the sea remembers. Your answer is routine. More drill, more care, more eyes. You screen slow, loaded transports, ammunition, flour, gasoline. You watch pontoon boxes become a temporary pier. Bulldozers bite red earth. War shows you one of its truest faces. A wide, quiet construction site. A grey morning finds you screening a troop transport toward New Georgia. Through binoculars on the other ship you catch young faces beneath net-covered helmets, attentive smiles, cigarettes that never really dangle. You lift a hand, they answer with small salutes. We see them again? Someone asks, but the sea swallows the rest of the sentence. On your ship, fresh water is rationed, salt dries on your skin, shirts hang at the bow to air like polite wordless flags. Weeks knot themselves into work, degrease a pin, tension a line, recheck a fuse. The HF set hums like a voice from the next room at home. Evenings, when the big band slides out of the speaker at a gentle volume, you square your rack with the care of a small ceremony. 5:00 tomorrow, the section leader whispers. Condition zebra at 04:30. You nod. You like the word zebra, the sound of doors meeting their frames with respect. Rotation carries you into the Central Pacific. The Gilbert's first Tarawa November. You arrive after the smoke already lifts like dark incense, and the burnt coconut smell meets fuel on the wind. Your ship doesn't blast holes for anyone you guard. Radar alive, eyes narrowed. Low contacts, probable Ricky, the CIC says. The horizon measures things without hurry. LCVPs like patient ants, a low grey sea. Men crouch behind gunwales, faces blotched with spray and sand. Your wake draws a pale stitch across the water. When a downed pilot drifts near the bridge in a yellow raft, the order floats down, recover. The maneuver is a ballet of few words. Throw, hold, easy. You heave him aboard, coughing softly, eyes bright with salt and fatigue. Thanks, he says. You pass him a blanket that smells of storeroom and patience. Then the marshals, Kwajalein, Iniwetok. The water is a full, rested blue. The threat from the air doesn't vanish. It simply becomes more intermittent. Farther off, the heat is steady. Below in the engine room, the machinist teaches you to hear the engine's rhythm. No true silence, just metal rolling over itself. If a beat goes out of time, come find me, he murmurs. You learn a new listening that keeps anxiety away. Between operations you drop anchor at Funafuti, then Ulithi, a huge sheltered lagoon that looks as though a patient hand drew it on the chart. Tanker barges snort, yard craft scurry like beetles. On deck a sailor tunes a guitar with neat motions. Another stitches a patch onto a sleeve. When do we go back? One asks softly, we're always going back. The other answers without irony. You watch the horizon and understand going back means changing place while staying in the same water. Spring 1944 sets you toward the Marianas. Saipan, Tinian, Guam. Orders are clear and quiet. Screen, shield, watch. The CIC feels like a heart beating evenly. Cap is up, someone says in the same voice they'd use to note the weather. From far astern, planes rise off carrier decks like dandelion seeds on a dependable breeze. On June 19th, the sky grows speckled. You adjust your helmet strap, then loosen it. On your ship, you do not hunt glory. You keep your circle. Voices in the net, flattened by the circuit, talk the sky. Splash, splash one. No one raises the register. You pace out your assigned guard arc, eyes on canopies and parachutes. You fetch one pilot from a hesitant chute. He lands awkwardly, tangles for a moment, bobs up spitting. Got you, the boat hook man murmurs. You haul him in, long as a wet branch. Coffee, someone says. Easy, you answer. The Great Marianas turkey shoot stays a headline elsewhere. For you it is two cold hands between yours and the round, unchanging song of the diesels. Typhoon season brushes you from the side. Long swells, a pressed down sky, shorter words. On the bridge, the navigator pins charts so they won't breathe off the table. The captain says very simply, don't force her. Listen to the ship. You make your station a room small enough for confidence. Every object has its place. The cues in your head, check straps, clean lenses, confirm contacts, become a way to sleep less deeply and rest better. By summer you're back at Ulithi, that floating city of masts, cranes and antennas. In the evening the USO show reaches you in thin lines. A clarinet that holds back often to make space for laughter. Mess talk slides to what waits ahead. The Philippines. We're going back, an officer says, eyes on a chart. Leyte. October 1944. Smells like big departures. You thread between transport columns, and sew a seam in the cloth of a large plan. The radio talks low. From far off, a deeper rumble. Carrier groups to the north. A sailor notes, the way you might say, weather over the ridge. On the nights around Leyte, the sky flickers now and then. Your life, though, is mainly disciplined waiting. Aft, depth charges, and the hedgehog are staged. Forward, eyes keep darting toward the coastline's dark profile. Flash red, the speaker says now and then. Air alert. High shapes pass at a distance, farther than the heart wants to measure. A dot dips, rises again, like a wrong season gull. Tracers write short letters. In the middle of the Battle of Leyte Gulf, you do not see the map from above. You hold your assigned slice of horizon, fingertips on its rim. Later, back at Ulithi, you hear of a small group of escort carriers that stood when larger ships bore down Taffy 3 off Samar. Names of destroyers that charged ahead. Johnston, Howell, Samuel B. Roberts are spoken low, like relatives who did something simple and immense. There is no ceremony aboard your ship, only quiet and small acts, a cap set down gently on a shelf, the pause of a breath before picking up tools again. After Leyte the track bends. Mindoro, Luzon, squalls, creaks, panels working. Here the word kamikaze draws nearer. You first hear it in the wardroom, voiced softly to keep the room steady. Deliberate dives, An officer explains in an even tone. Your tasks don't change, the air's texture does. Fire drills grow even more attentive. Switchboards are shrouded, hose lines are inspected twice. The gunner's mate lowers his voice. Don't chase with your eyes. Breathe. Cut the flight path. A black evening off Mindoro. And 1 point holds its line too well. Bogey low 180 comes on the circuit. Time turns to rubber. Tracers open small windows. The dot becomes wing, then body. It banks, almost a caress of your bow, but its geometry breaks. Maybe a hit you did not see. It slides into the sea ahead of your wake. A short spray, a breath of fuel on the wind. No one speaks. Secure, the speaker says at last. You stay at stations a little longer, out of respect more than caution. January 1945 brings a sea with a colder voice. Ulithi again. Then new boards on the bulletin. The word Okinawa appears on a slate, wiped and chalked again. We'll need radar pickets, screens, open eyes, the captain says, calm as he'd read a stores list. The word picket sits differently in your ear, out front and listening, a bell that rings before all else. You don't know if your ship will be posted there, but the thought pulls up a chair beside your rack and doesn't leave. Meanwhile the rhythm tightens. The CIC revises watch bills. Check sheets gain penciled lines. Inspect gasket, bulkhead 3A. KC was reserves. Compartment B. The cook eases back the salt. The day swings warm to chill and back. Bodies approve. Someone loses his voice for 2 days. Not much to say anyway. The ship speaks a common language of footfalls, whistles, and ticks. During a dewatering drill, the machinist crooks a finger. Here, he lays your fingertip on a screw head. Feel that? A small, even tremor, like a clock in the next room. Bilge pump. If it changes its song, we'll hear it here. You nod. When war tries to raise its volume, you answer with this music of quiet machines. On the calendar's horizon, Okinawa swells like a slow hill. Officers explain it as a map of distances and turns. Outer screen, approach lanes, cap cycles. You hold it as a word that comes down softly, sits by you, and asks only that you keep it in sight without staring. In the mess, someone sketches a crooked map on a newspaper's edge. A fat bean, small dots around. Us here, he says. If it comes, we hold. We hold still? Still inside, I mean. Right? Nights under darkened ship grow a shade darker. You draw your rack curtain, and the laundry soap on the sheet smells clean and plain. A small luxury. On your tongue, a trace of copper and coffee. Outside, a sailor yawns softly. Another coughs twice. The sea makes the same sentence for hours, and you let yourself be the taut line in it, tight enough to be useful and no tighter. By late March, training doubles back, fire, first aid, compartment sealing. You learn to move behind a mask, to speak in short bricks of words. Valve, shut, pressure, steady, passage, clear. When you take the mask off your face, bears the red lace of the straps, fading slowly. You drink water, slow. In sick bay the corpsman shows you how to bandage a hand without hurting. Elevate the wrist, he says, almost in a whisper. You nod. Evenings. The sky turns to tissue paper colors. On the bridge, the captain stays longer with the watch team. The voices are threads. You go forward and lay your palm on warm plating. The ship breathes. Without warning, the first scene returns. The siren, the far speck in the sky, the mixed scent of diesel and coffee. It isn't a fear, it's a reminder. You set it beside the other kept things. The sonar's ping, the yellow raft, the blanket given to a pilot, the logbook with a blunt pencil, the names called softly at mail call. You stack them on an inner shelf. In order, draw the small curtain. Morning tastes of simple food. Oatmeal, coffee, a slice of bread with margarine. Final checks, the division chief says. Quiet. Today hose lines. You unreal. Feel the hose heavy and alive under your palms when the water comes. The man opposite you lets a brief smile show. You've come as far as you can come before going. The night before you shape course for the Rhine-Kieuse, you stand a minute alone on deck. The wind is cooler now. The moonless sky is a clean black. You rest your back against the rail. The sea takes your breathing and slows it down. Far off, the generator clears its throat once. Somewhere in the mess someone laughs. but softly, a thought passes and doesn't stop. Whatever comes, will come as the rest has, one order at a time, one breath at a time. You'll be there, as you were on all the mornings before this one. And when, soon after, the siren lifts that deep thread of sound again, you'll know it's timber. You'll find yourself back on deck, hands on the cold rail, on the horizon. Okinawa's sky will look pale and still, like a blank page. You won't see the plane yet. You'll hear the drone first, then the small silence between two waves. You'll raise your eyes, and everything you learn to do slowly, watch, listen, breathe, will be there with you, ready, unhurried. The siren is already fading when you step into your station's small square of metal and air. The deck plates hold a quiet shiver, as if the ship were taking a breath with you. Dawn is only a paler patch to the east. The sea is the color of gun grease. Out beyond the bow the sky looks empty, but the CIC speaks in steady clipped bricks of sound-powered syllables. Raid bearing 025, Angels low, range 12, bogeys, multiple. You rest your palm on the coaming for a second. Feel the coolness, let your shoulder blades drop. Steady, the chief murmurs, no more than a thread of voice. The guns are already at elevation. 3/50 SAR, quiet as animals about to leap. 40s with their paired barrels lifted. 20s wearing their circular sights like small halos. The bridge cuts back on the engines. The ship's head comes a fraction to port. Another voice, gentler, from the net. Cap checking in. Above the grey, faint twin scratches appear, then turn into dots, friendly fighters in a weaving pattern, patient shepherds. You feel your mouth go a little dry. You take a measured sip from the canteen, cool and metallic, and set it back in its place. The phones purr in your ear, and the CIC counts the distance down as if reciting a recipe. 10, 8, 6. A pause. Splits, some going high, some low. The captain's voice floats down, even as a level horizon. Hold your fire until you've got line. No sharpness. You realize you are grateful for the tone. The first attacker shows himself without drama, a single-engine speck slipping from the grey, too direct, too steady. You track with your eyes, then settle half a ship length ahead of where he will be. The director sings a soft number line. Left, hold up a shade. The first bursts reach for the dull morning, threads of light stitching space. You see nothing change, then a thin flicker on the aircraft's left wing, a stutter in its grace, and it slides off, low, scarring the water with a V of spray. No one cheers. Someone says, as if remarking on a cloud, he sips lost it. The ship holds her breath for another count, and the CIC moves on. Multiple low starboard bow, range 4. The second group comes in wide, using the dim light. The air takes on the faint tang of cordite and hot oil, smell of work, clean and intent. Your hands move, because they have moved this way 100 times in quiet drills. Barrage fire climbs and hangs for a heartbeat. Tracer lines write gentle arcs up and ahead. You hear the slow clack of the loader, the chuff of spent casings striking the deck with soft bright taps. Your mind, strangely, has time for small things. The way the morning breeze carries a note of seaweed from somewhere, the muted thud of a hatch settling in its seat 3 decks below. 2 on the deck. A lookout calls, voice still hushed. They come skipping just above the waves, wings level, noses patient as if they were reading a line in a book. The ship leans a breath, presents less of herself. Fire thickens in front of them, a curtain you can almost imagine touching. One banks too shallow. He clips his own wake. The other holds. For a moment you think he is going to run the rail, the world narrowing to wing and water, and your own heartbeat. Then he shudders, lifts, and slides past the bow, a spill of spray, and a dark shape that breaks, quietly, into the sea. Check bearings. Conserve. The captain again, still calm. Below decks, somewhere, you hear the quick footfalls of a damage control team, moving with leashed urgency. Hose lines thumping softly along the passageway, wooden shores, knocking like knuckles. The smell of water fog and foam drifts up in a ghost of cool. Overhead, a friendly fighter angles down, and draws a long line through the sky. Far out, a spark beads, and disappears. The radio net carries a pilot SIP's voice, almost conversational. Tally 2, 1 smoking. The pause that follows feels large, but it is only a count of 5. Then the CIC again, closer now, less breath between words. New group, 3, maybe 4, bearing 080 Angels 1, closing fast. You roll your shoulders once more. The chief's hand lands on your upper arm, not gripping, just present. Remember, he says in the voice people use in church, breathe. They come as if drawn on a string, single silhouettes with squared-off canopies, not high, not low, just right where your eye wants to rest. Your gun line lifts, settles. The lead traces trace small commas in the air. The first aircraft twitches and steadies, then a puff on the cowling, and smoke lays itself along the fuselage like a shawl. It sways, makes a small tragic correction, and turns the wrong way toward you. For a half-breath you feel the ship under your feet. How much steel there is, how much water, and then your body is already lower, your hands tucked where they know they will be safe if something passes close. The plane misses your railing by a clean 2 boat lengths, touches the sea, and is gone into an oval of foam. A fragment clatters and whispers down onto the forecastle like a handful of coins. Detail, the chief says, and 2 men step forward, gloved, and walk with the measured pace of people carrying a sleeping child. The shard is hot, it smokes faintly. One of them nudges it toward the scupper with the toe of a boot, then hoses the deck with a thin sheet of water until the hiss gives way to steam, then to nothing. New vector, the CIC says, not hurrying. Bearing 040 fast possible OCAR carrier, turning away, escort diving. The word OCAR folds itself into your chest like a cool stone. You know the stories, rocket-powered bolts, carried in on the bellies of bombers. You listen for the second part, the part that tells you what you can do. It comes, quiet as always, cap is on them. You glance up, far, far out. 2 specks unthread from a larger cross-hatching and drop. The rest of the raid bends, almost politely, away from that quadrant, and time resumes its wider stride. Without warning the ship jolts, not a hit, not the tearing metal you've always dreaded, more like a giant hand patting her to get her attention. A near miss astern. Water lifts, the color of slate, and comes down in heavy beads that ring on the steel like a brief rain. Down below a relief valve chirps. Up forward a messenger tightens a hose, coupling another half-turn. You feel the collective body of the crew do the same thing you just did. Everyone taking one deeper breath at the same moment. Report flooding. Negative. Report fire. Negative. Those small calls and answers walk the ship like watchmen, and find everything in place. Then the last of the wave, almost an afterthought. One more single-engine shape, wobbling, maybe already damaged, flying as if by memory of flight. He comes on, and the guns do their work without hurry. The tracers meet him, and a wing eases down. He passes your beam, tips once as if in acknowledgement, and vanishes behind a low hill of spray. Silence spreads, real silence, not the holding of breath. You realize you have been moving so smoothly that nothing in you has quickened beyond usefulness. Your mouth tastes of copper and coffee again. You roll your neck from left to right. Far away the fighters begin to level out and turn for altitude. The CIC says, as if remembering a grocery item, all tracks faded. Secure from GQ, the loudspeaker breathes, but not quite yet. The captain lets the order rest a few beats longer, and in those beats the ship does something that feels like kneeling. Hoses are flaked, casings gathered, straps coiled, covers drawn over sights as gently as blankets over the faces of sleeping children. A stretcher comes up to the forecastle, empty, just a drill of readiness, repeated at the end, a small proof that hands still know how to place themselves. The calm that follows is not empty. You can hear the handy billy pump ticking over in test for a moment, then clicking off. You can hear a pencil in the log room making neat parentheses around times and bearings. You can hear the cook lift a lid, soft metal upon metal, and the thin cloud of steam that comes out carries the homely smell of oatmeal and something sweet. Coffee in the passage, someone says, not whispering now, just softly. You take your cup and let it warm your fingers. The chief comes to stand beside you, looking out past the rail where the ocean has already erased any visible line of what just happened. He makes a small shape of his mouth that might, on another day, be a smile. Good rhythm, he says. You nod. You want to tell him that what you felt wasn't bravery, just a kind of obedience to drills, to voices, to breath. You don't say it. You think he knows. A message comes down the line, threaded through with static. A picket farther out has been hit. The captain answers quietly. The ship's head turns with a modest change of course and power comes up a notch. You're not racing, you're going toward. The sea accepts the decision with a small lift under the bow. When you arrive, the other ship is still afloat and working, black smudges along her starboard side, a ragged place in the rail that looks like a mouth exhaling. Men move with careful speed, passing foam and CO5, hauling a hose with its calf-thick weight, laying shores across a sprung frame. Your boat goes down with a squeak of davits. You climb in and feel the tender give of the sea under something smaller. The oarsman gives 2 short strokes to bring you alongside. Coming aboard, your coxswain calls, voice decent and low. The other ship answers with the same softness. Come on, and hands appear where they need to be. You carry what is needed, which is always more ordinary than you think. A bundle of bandages, a tourniquet still rolled, a blanket that smells of burlap and laundry soap, a small box of morphine syrettes that clinks faintly. In the battle dressing station, a corpsman meets your eyes and gives you a task with a nod. Hold here, he says, and you hold, steady pressure, 2 fingers, while he wraps and pins and moves on. The man under your hands breathes with an even rise and fall. His eyes blink once, calmly. It's all right, you say, and you mean it, and somehow it is. Back on deck, the damage control officer points, and you become a pair of hands in a line, passing wedges and a small hydraulic jack, easing a bulkhead back to true by a 1/4 inch that seems, in that moment, as large as a mile. Someone calls for water fog, and you learn, again, how soft a powerful stream can be when you set the nozzle just so. The smoke thins to a thoughtful grey. A man on a hose team coughs once, wipes his mouth with the back of his wrist, and nods. He looks as if he has just remembered the punchline to a story and decided to save it for later. There is no rush in the return to your own ship. The coxswain waits for a lift, then a fall, then another lift, and slides you away with 2 strokes that feel like breathing. The ladder is cool under your palms. The deck receives your boots the way a porch receives a familiar footfall. The boatswain's pipe gives its small, proud flourish. Secure from GQ, the captain says at last. And this time, the words stay. You unbuckle your helmet. The webbing has left faint marks on your forehead that fade as quickly as a thought. You hang the helmet where it belongs. You hang your feelings there with it, and they too seem to fit their hooks. Breakfast waits but does not insist. You eat slowly, the way you have learned to do everything out here. Someone at the next table tears his bread in neat halves and hands you one, as if you had asked. Thanks, you say. He nods and sips his coffee, both of you listening to the low hum in the plates. That means the ship is underway, whole. After, you go topside with a rag and a tin of oil, and do the small, clean work of wiping metal. The morning has found its brightness, and the sea, close to, is a color that would be impossible to name to anyone who is not here. You move the cloth in slow circles. You've seen men pray in many ways. This is one of them. A runner from CIC hands you a chit. It's nothing dramatic, bearings plotted, times checked, an acknowledgement of a radar track that never quite grew teeth, but you read it as if it were a postcard from a friend. That's what the day is now, the quiet correspondence between machines and men, between water and steel, between fear and the habits that turn it into care. Later you're sent below for a short spell to close your eyes. In your rack, the air is warm and smells faintly of iron and soap. You draw the curtain, and your heartbeat, which had never really raced, smooths into the same line the engines are drawing through the sea. For a moment you are back at Great Lakes, in that first week when everything smelled of wet wood and new rope, and you remember the instructor's whisper, slow and careful. You think of the first letter you wrote home, and the second, of the Southern Cross pointed out by a quiet finger, of the yellow raft and the blanket you tucked around a stranger. Above your head, the ship breathes. On deck, the chief is probably saying the word rhythm to someone who needs to hear it. Out over the horizon, the sky is busy with someone else's morning. Here, now, you let your hand rest open on your chest, and let go of the last of the tightness you hadn't known you were keeping. Far forward, a hatch shuts with a polite clunk. In the mess, a pan is set down just a shade too gently to ring. You smile at the almost sound. The sea slides by, making the same sentence it made before the raid, and will make after, and you fall into the blank between its commas, where rest is. When you wake, The light has moved along the bulkhead by the width of your palm. Your name is called for mail. A single sheet, blacked in places by a censor's kind blunt marker. It says little, and gives you everything. The kitchen roof at home is fixed. A neighbor's cow calved. Your sister's boy has learned to whistle. You fold the paper along the same crease twice, and put it back in its envelope. In your head, two lines settle together. The careful voice of the CIC and the patient handwriting from far away, and they sound oddly like the same music. By evening, orders will roll down again with their soft weight. Watches will turn. Another dawn will lay its pale edge on the horizon, and whatever comes will come. You will step into your square of metal and air. Rest your hand on the combing. Feel the coolness. Drop your shoulders and breathe. You will hear the net. You will do the things that are small enough to do well. And if a speck blooms again at the very rim of vision, you will look at it the way you've learnt to look at everything here, calmly with enough kindness left in you to aim straight. The day after the raid, the sea seems to speak more softly. Paint flakes from a stanchion get sanded smooth. Hose lines are drained and flaked. A cover is stitched with 3 slow square stitches where the edge had begun to fray. You stand a quiet watch. The CIC murmurs bearings that don't turn into anything. Now and then a fighter crosses your patch of sky, neat as a pencil line. You measure out your breath with the ship's faint tremor, and let the morning pass like a patient hand over cloth. By afternoon you anchor in the lee of Karama Reto. Around you the anchorage holds a floating village. Repair ships with their cranes tilted like watchful birds. Oilers, breathing out a warm petroleum smell. Tugs that move as politely as harbor cats. Smoke boats lay a pale screen at dusk. A careful veil that drifts and thins and gathers again. In the distance a picket's mast shows a new bracing. Fresh lumber, pale against the weathered grey. You look once and look away, the way you've learned to look at things that carry their own quiet. Mail, someone calls, and the line forms without hurry. Your letter home is a single page, written in the space between watches. We are well. The sea is calm today. The coffee tastes the same no matter where we are. When I can, I sleep fine. You don't say where you are, or what the morning looked like. You fold the paper in half, then half again, crease it with your thumbnail, and pass it along to the sack with the same care you use to coil a line. News filters out in the low way it does at sea. President Roosevelt is gone. They say in voices that do not reach for anything extra. The captain gathers you at quarters, and speaks in the same even tone you hear on the phones. We carry on, he says. No speeches, flags go to half, then rise again. Work continues. The pumps hum in their good key. The cooks crack open crates of canned peaches and set a bowl on each table. You taste the syrup and think how odd it is that sweetness can make a room quieter. Weeks turn. The Okinawa calendar runs its course. April into May into June, and the pickets keep their stations, changing out like lungs. Some ships return to the anchorage with scorch marks you pretend not to see. Others do not return at all, and their names enter the ship the way weather does, gradually, and then they are part of what you are inside. You learn to let them settle where they choose. When the island is declared secured at last, the word reaches you as a sentence in a ledger. Men on the mess deck nod, as if someone had reminded them what day it is. You upend a bucket, sit on it, and oil a breech block that didn't need it yet. Clean work calms the hands. Slow and careful, you hear, and you keep to it. Orders take you back to Alethi, that big blue room where the war catches its breath. The lagoon looks as if someone has combed the water flat. You go ashore for an hour, a Coca-Cola in a sweating bottle, a fan that chops the air so evenly you can hear each blade arrive. You think it's near the end? A shipmate asks. Not to start a talk, but to place a thought in the air and see if it holds. I think we'll do what we're told, you answer, and he nods in a way that says the two ideas might be the same. Then, abruptly, August finds you at sea again when a fragment of message comes down the voice circuit, flanked by static as if it needed guards. A new and most powerful bomb. The words are plain and feel light in the ear and heavy in the chest at the same time. No one around you speculates aloud. You all have learned the shape of rumors and how they swell and thin. You eat your supper, and rinse your tray, and stand your watch, and say little. The ocean moves the way it always moves. On August 15th, the captain steps to the bridge wing at noon, and looks outward, as if to be a little closer to what he's about to say. All hands, the speaker begins. and you recognize the slight formality he uses when the thing is both simple and large. Hostilities are to cease. Maintain readiness. No demonstrations. Carry on. No one cheers. A few men clear their throats as if the wind had turned. The boatswain's mate, older than most, takes his cap off and sets it beside him on the deck for a moment, then puts it back on. Somewhere far off, another ship does blow 3 long notes. It comes to you changed by distance into something like a foghorn. You let the sound pass through you the way you let swell pass under the keel. For the first time in a very long time, you look at the horizon and feel it begin to be just horizon again. The work doesn't drop away. It softens. Gun covers stay on a little longer in the morning. Drills are shorter. The CIC still speaks, but in an ordinary voice now. Navigation fixes, weather lines, friendly call signs. A cutter comes by in close, and a man on her bow tosses a line in an easy half arc, and you catch it without thinking, and make it fast as if it were a kindness rather than a task. On September 2nd, the news comes like a well-made knot, tight, square, to the point. Surrender signed in Tokyo Bay. You are not there. Your piece of ocean is an ordinary patch hundreds of miles away. But the ship dresses, anyway, flags at the halyards bright in the sun, and the captain allows the whistle its 3 long, clean blasts. The deck crew grins, a quiet showing of teeth. Someone produces a harmonica and plays a tune that could be a march if it wanted to be, but it chooses not to. You lean on the rail and watch the wake write a straight line, and then a softer one. There is still work to do. Escorts, typhoon evasion, a few days riding a weather station grid that makes your chart look like a neat chessboard. You steam north and then east. You take on fuel. You give away spare blankets to a ship whose stores ran thin. You help a tender with a tow that's more ceremony than labor. The sea opens wider in front of you. The air cools. Men begin to talk about home with the same careful brevity they used for bearings and ranges. Penn Station, says one, just to taste the syllables. Stockyards, says another, and you can smell them in his voice. You do not say your word out loud. You carry it in your pocket beside a stub of pencil. The morning you make Golden Gate again is a grey-white morning with a low ceiling and a dampness that feels like a hand on your cheek. The bridge steps out of the mist, and then is inside the mist, and then steps out again. And each time it looks both larger and gentler. The ship straightens her shoulders. On Treasure Island the processing is as orderly as you expected. A line for forms, a table for pay, a table for mustering out papers, a table for a neat stack of pamphlets about what the government will do next, for men who have stood where you stood. You sign, and your name looks ordinary on the page, and it pleases you to see it that way. Where to? The man behind the last table asks, just above a whisper, as if this too might be classified. East, you say. He nods like a navigator with a clean fix. Your duffel is heavier than it was when you came west, and somehow easier to carry. On the pier, you turn once more to look back. The ship is still there, but already she is becoming a shape in your head more than a shape in the air. A deck hand coils a line and sets it down perfectly. The boatswain's pipe gives 2 notes that rise and fall like a small bow and a small farewell. You answer it in your chest and walk on. The train moves as if the country were patient and wide enough to contain your new quiet. Wheat fields fold and unfold. At a junction the engine idles, and you step down to the cinder ballast and smell creosote and dust and the faint, sweet ghost of peaches from a lunch counter. 2 men in worn suits argue gently about baseball. A boy in overalls practices a whistle. 3 notes, trying to make them even. You listen and think of a night at sea when the only music you could hear was the handy billy ticking to itself, content. Home is not a bannering moment. It is a door that opens on a familiar hinge, a kitchen table with a scar where a hot pot once sat, a window that sticks the first time, a chair that takes your weight with a small complaint and then forgives you. You set your cap down and feel how the room seems to set it down with you. You sleep that first night in a bed that doesn't sway and wake for a second thinking something is wrong, and then you realize the ship is still with you, the rhythm, not the roll, and you put your palm flat on the sheet and find it there, steady. In the weeks that follow, you find yourself in places that do not smell of oil and paint, a library where paper has its own quiet, a hardware store where twine is sold by the yard, a classroom where the instructor speaks in a voice you have heard before, slow and careful. Your hands, whenever they don't know what to do, find a rag to fold or a surface to wipe, and the old calm returns like a friend with the key to your door. You do not seek noise. You look for the metronome hidden in ordinary things, the tick of a clock in a hallway, the regular hiss of a radiator, the long breath a town takes at supper time. Sometimes in the evening, you sit on a stoop, and the wind shifts and brings you a trace of river and tar, and for a moment the horizon is a straight line again, and the dark is gentle and complete. You think of the Southern Cross pointed out by a quiet finger, of a yellow raft and a blanket, of Taffy 3 spoken of in a wardroom, in a voice that would not let itself break, of an anchorage where tugs and cranes made a city out of patience, of a morning off Okinawa when you learned, finally, what your training was for, and discovered it was not for glory at all, but for care. If people ask, you speak in short, true words. We escorted, we waited, we breathed, we did what was in front of us. When they lean closer for drama, you offer them something better, the way a pump sounds when it is healthy, the way a man says steady when he means I'm here, the way a ship can teach you to wait until the right count before you put your foot down. They nod and sometimes their shoulders drop, the way yours did when the chief laid his hand there before a raid. Years later, because years do slip past like long even swells, you may stand by a harbour and hear an engine far out that runs as smooth as a pencil line, and your body before your mind will take one slow breath and let it out again. You will remember the prepared silence before a siren, the prepared silence after a siren, and the life you learned to make inside those two kinds of quiet. And you will understand with a steadiness that does not need a speech, that part of you still keeps a square of metal and air in perfect order somewhere just behind your ribs. The war changed maps and governments and calendars. To you it also changed the size of small things. A mug handed across a table, a line coiled just right, letters folded to the same crease. Twice. A horizon allowed to be only a horizon again. The world goes on with its larger work. You go on with yours. When you lay your head down at night, and the room settles around you, the ship you knew settles too, and for a moment you feel the hull under your back and the sea writing its same old sentence. You breathe, in, out, and the sentence keeps you, the way it always did, afloat. Years pass in the quiet way of good weather. You don't count them, you let them fold. Work, supper, sleep, a door that clicks shut with a sound you trust. When people ask, you still answer in small truths, escorts, watches, bearings, breath, and they seem to find in your spareness what they came for. On some evenings you walk to the waterfront of whatever town your life has chosen, and stand with your hands in your pockets. The river wears the same patient face the ocean wore, brown where the light is thin, slate where the wind freckles it. A tug eases by, low and sure, and you feel your shoulders drop in a reflex older than thought. The engine's steady note finds the part of you that once matched your breathing to diesel's, and for a moment the air smells faintly of paint and rope and coffee that has waited on a warmer too long. You have learned to keep a kind of order around you, tools laid down where the hand expects them, shoes aligned by the bed, letters folded to the same crease twice. On the shelf sits a mug someone gave you, blue enamel chipped on the rim. You hold it in the morning and look at the steam and think, not of raids or charts, but of how many times a day aboard a ship begins with something simple warming your hands. Every now and then a sound finds you, metal on metal, a valve closing with a polite click, a pump beginning its soft regular song, and you pause without meaning to. You listen the way you were taught to listen, not for danger, only for health. The world, away from war, has the same request to make of you, slow and careful, and you meet it with the rhythm you kept in a square of metal and air. You keep a photograph in a drawer, not on a wall, not on a mantle, just where your fingers can learn its edges from time to time. It isn't dramatic. 4 men on a deck, you could walk blindfolded, light slanting across their boots, a coil of hose that looks almost like a sleeping animal. On the back, a short note in a hand you can still hear. Steady, that one word turns the paper into a compass. When the day runs fast, you touch it, and the needle settles. If sleep comes hard, you do what you did then. Count the ship you carry inside. You start with the familiar circuit, ladder, passageway, hatch, combing, and you let your mind set hands where hands belong, nozzle, just so, strap snug, cover down, valve checked. By the time you've reached the bow, the room has grown quiet around you. Somewhere, just behind your ribs, that square of metal and air is once more in order, and the prepared silence, the one before and the one after, holds you as it always did. And when morning opens its soft lid again, you stand, breathe, and go about the small work of a life at peace. A line coiled neatly, a door closed gently, a kindness passed hand to hand, like a mug of coffee. The horizon is only a horizon now. You let it be. You didn't come home with speeches. You came home with a way of moving through the world that leaves things a touch steadier than you found them. The war wrote itself across maps and calendars. You let it write, in you, a patient script of care. That is your record. That is your return. You look out, one last time, and let the water, river, harbour, sea say what it has always said in its long sentence. You breathe with it, in, out, and you go on.